Broadcasting from the Allen B. Levan NSU Broward Center of Innovation at Nova Southeastern University. Welcome to Sunshine Startups Live, featuring rockstar entrepreneurs, bright ideas, and experts on the startup ecosystem. And now your hosts of Sunshine Startups Live, Jim Ryan and John Wensveen.
Hi, and welcome to Sunshine Startups Live. I'm your host, entrepreneur, investor, and startup enthusiast, Jim Ryan. It's 2024, Season 2. I'm joined by my good friend and colleague, John Wensveen. John, we had an amazing Season 1. I wanted to ask you, before we begin, was there anything that kind of stood out for you, any special moments or guests that we had in Season 1 that you thought was extra special?
Wow. Every guest was special, and I'm so happy
You're
to be
so
back
politically
here.
Correct in the new year.
No, but I am going to answer it. I'm going to highlight. I thought that it was an amazing, for the first time we've ever done this, and now we're back for Season 2 in 24, and I'm so excited. And I think Kathy Chu and Lil Roberts were my two favorite guests, along with Melissa Medina, all from different backgrounds, all highly energetic about what they're doing, all having impact, but I really enjoyed those conversations, and I know that they did too, and they continue to talk about it. So everybody was a highlight. I think for 24, my answer is going to be Colin Campbell. We'll get there in a minute, but it's great to be with you.
No pressure on him now.
No. Well, a fellow Canadian to a fellow Canadian. I don't know if you know that, but I'm glad to be with you. And for the listening audience, my name is John Wensveen. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer here at NSU and the Executive Director of the Allen B. Levan NSU Broward Center of Innovation, the world's first theme park for entrepreneurs, and the only model that we're aware of that supports the founder's journey from birth of an idea through successful exit or global expansion, plus a whole lot more in this 54,000 square foot emerging tech collision station.
Boom.
Drop the mic.
And I agree with you. We had such great guests in Season 1, and I'd like to thank everybody that participated. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, of course, if you like the content that we're sharing with you. And talking about content and entrepreneurship and those that help foster the ecosystem, the man wrote the book, and we're really excited to have Colin Campbell with us. Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. His book on Amazon, Successful Entrepreneur. He's built several businesses. The book, over 450 pages. Each chapter is amazing. And here to talk with us and introduce 2024 is Colin himself. And Colin, thank you so much for carving out the time to talk with us today. Really excited to kind of dig into your background and certainly the book, because I think there's a lot of chapters and information on there that can really help a lot of the startups that are listening. And I know you do a podcast, so you're gonna show us up, John and I, on this podcast today, I'm sure. But talk to us about, because you've had a number of successful businesses. 2 Cows and Geeks for Less. Kind of walk us through that entrepreneurial background, and then John and I are going to dig deep into your wonderfully successful book.
Yeah, well, don't think it was all success. Let's be clear. It's been a roller coaster. It goes right back to 1993, right out of college. First thing I did was work on the family farm and flog vegetables for 4 or 5 months. I used all that money. We piled it into a software rental business in Canada. At the time, it was legal to rent software. But January 1st, 1994, Bill Gates had ensured that the new NAFTA law would outlaw that particular business. So within 13 months of starting my first business, we were out of business. However, while we were there, my brother and I started something called a BBS, a bulletin board service, sort of like the way you would connect together before the internet. And it took off, became the second largest of BBS in Canada. And unfortunately, there was this other thing coming out called the internet. And we started an internet service provider, but we couldn't keep both businesses going. Even though we had this successful business, we shut it down. So another year later, a year and a half later, we shut our second company down. And then Internet Direct took off, became the largest in Canada. We did a publicly traded company. And we also did a company called 2 Cows at that time. There's many stories here. But fortunately, we were able to sell 2 Cows in 1998 We did sell Internet Direct, the ISP, in 1999. Company actually was publicly traded. We sold for about $180 million at the time, but we did a stock-for-stock swap, and we had an 18-month lockup. Well, you might remember back in March of 2000, something happened. Do you remember, Ryan, what happened in March of 2000?
Vaguely.
That was no. You remember? It was the .com crash.
Yeah.
There was a time, a moment, a day, actually, when a judge announced the breakup of Microsoft, and the Nasdaq fell from 5,000 to 4,000. Well, if you remember at the time, the Nasdaq actually went down all the way down to 1,200 or 1,300 and didn't recover for 15 or so years. And the reality is, we were doing a $50 million offering at the time, and this company, which traded at $19 a share, worth over $1 billion. $1 billion. And we own 40% of it, our initial shareholders, and I own 13% of it. I'm 29 years old. But we were locked up. This company, fast forward 18 months later, we filed for bankruptcy protection. I sold those shares that traded at $19 a share for 6 cents a share. So there you go. Yeah. Three companies already.
If you were only a few
down
weeks
for
earlier,
the count,
yeah.
3 times in a row here. So I should just give up right there. That should have been it, right? But we really had a passion for technology and the internet, and we launched a company called Hostopia. 6 years later, we took it public, and 2 years later, we sold to a Fortune 500 company. This time, Ryan, for all cash. We learned our lessons. Come 2012, I was asked to speak at MIT, Masters of Entrepreneurship, because we had done a number of companies, as you mentioned earlier, and they were very successful, and some of them very successful exits. So I was asked to speak at 2012 on, what is it that you're doing over and over again to succeed? And it really, was a point of reflection for me to think about that in the formula and understand that it starts, scale, exit, repeat, that there is a story, people, money, and systems, but they change dramatically between each stage. And an entrepreneur needs to change as well to be able to start, scale, exit, repeat. And that was the genesis of the book. It took 10 years to write this book, 2 years with almost 200 interviews, 50 interviews of which made the book. John, we talked about his Disneyland at the Alan Levan Center, NSU, and he contributed to one of our shows. And there's also some talk about how important it is to have incubators and how you can increase your chances of success as a startup to be in an incubator like the Alan Levan Center. So 200 interviews, 6 full-time staff members, and we got the book published, and you never know what can happen, right? We know we violated a lot of rules. It was published by Forbes. They got in a lot of trouble. They said the book is double the size of any of our other books. Yes, I went back and it doesn't matter. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. It's got to be done really well, or we ain't going to do it at all. So they put up with it, and they did a phenomenal job laying it out. It hit #1 bestseller in 7 categories on Amazon, debuted #1 bestseller in new releases, but also became a #1 bestseller in a number of different categories. And we're very, very excited to see it's done so well, and it's resonating well. It's really not a textbook. It is a collection of stories like John's story. It's a collection of stories that draw conclusions. It's a very easy read. We wrote it for the ADHD entrepreneur. 58 chapters, 200 callouts, 30 illustrations. I mean, we tried to make it as simple as possible. We even color-coded each section of the book so you'd understand, okay, I'm in start right now, I'm in scale, I'm in exit and repeat. I will also add, too, that the book, the Alan Levan Center and the incubator program that I've been speaking at now for almost 2 years has been really helpful in me putting together the book. In fact, it was the inspiration that helped me put together the 4 sticky note business plan. And we do the 4 sticky note business plan in the first session of the Incubate program every time we do that. And students, not students, I mean, these owners, I wouldn't call them students. I mean, you don't have to go to NSU to go to this program. We've had people of all ages and all backgrounds coming into this program. But they literally write a 4 sticky note business plan in 30 minutes. And you can guess what each sticky note has. There's the story, and we're going to want to lock that story down. It's got to be unique and different. There's the people. How many people do we need to get to our first stage gate? How much money do we need to raise? That's the number 3. And what are our KPIs, our systems? That's number 4. And it's amazing how we can put together a business plan in such a fast period of time. And that's in the book, and it's detailed in the book as well. But I've learned a lot. I've developed the theories and strengthened them by working on that Incubate program. Thank you, John.
Well, number one, thank you for everything you do to supporting the whole ecosystem here in South Florida and beyond. I have to tell you, I've been through this book numerous times. In fact, the one that I actually read is pretty torn up at this point because I've inked it up myself. So this is one of my 20 fresh copies, I think, that I ended up purchasing because I've been giving them away as gifts for the camera purposes. It is here, and it is amazing. And the quality of this book, I mean, just the page feel is incredible. So what's interesting about entrepreneurs is there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that don't like to give away the secret sauce. This is mine. We hold it close to the chest. I don't really want to share guidance and advice. And there's the other entrepreneur that really wants to help the world and make it a better place. And I would put you in that category. And this book does an amazing job. So what was really the impetus behind going forward with this? Why do you want to tell the world about this message?
Well, I mean, the reality is startups have been a passion of mine. Today, we have an incubator ourselves, and we have about 20 companies that I've invested in, a majority in about half of those companies, and it's just an absolute passion. That's maybe the positive reason. But if you read the book, near the Toll of the Entrepreneur, and I think that was the second last chapter, the fact of the matter is entrepreneurship is a drug, and I'm just in love with it. Mm-hmm. And this was an opportunity for me to really, and I have no financial gain from this book. I don't do master classes. We don't charge for speeches and that kind of stuff. This is really all about just giving back, and it's been my passion. I've been very lucky in life, very successful, and I believe that when there are books in my life that affected my career, I think one of the coolest chapters in this book was when I got the opportunity to interview Jeffrey Moore, who wrote Crossing the Chasm, Inside the Tornado. I'm surprised he took the call and literally agreed to do this interview. I read his book back in 1994, and it influenced every single one of my companies. In chapter 3 of this book, we talk about catching the wave, and we are in an unprecedented time where we are experiencing the greatest paradigm shift in our lifetimes, which is AI, and that paradigm shift will mint more millionaires than any other technological shift we've ever experienced. This is an incredible time, and to have been able to capture some of that in the book and to be able to get the advice from Jeffrey Moore about how you can win in a tornado, and to be able to put that and articulate it, and to have the time of AI rise up right now when the book comes out is absolutely incredible. So books and authors have influenced me and helped me be successful, and I just want to give that back.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah, and you mentioned a couple of chapters in the book and how it's laid out, and John, and when we talk about season 1, John mentioned, Jim, we've got to get Colin on the show. He's written this terrific book, and I've had a chance to read parts of it. I wasn't able to read the full book. But I had parts of it, and I thought it was striking on certain areas, and I wanted to kind of dig a little deeper into the book because I think it would really help out some of the entrepreneurs that are listening today. You mentioned sort of this fourth industrial revolution that's happening right now, and how AI is can really democratize the opportunity for wealth for a lot of people that maybe founders that are hearing about AI, seeing all in the news about AI, but thinking about starting a business. How, when you look at AI today, Colin, and some of the principles in your book, what do you think stands out as far as I'm thinking about putting a business together using AI? What areas in the book do you think would really help that entrepreneur? Because as a venture capitalist myself, I'm seeing obviously every company today almost is coming out with something with AI. So as you indicated, the timing is incredible. So I'm picking up this book. What areas do you think would help me the most when I'm thinking about putting an AI company together that you think would be most helpful?
Yeah, so in the book, chapter 3, we talk about catching the wave. And there are some principles that Jeffrey Moore talks about, but probably one of them that really stands out for me, one lesson was whoever delivers the fastest in a tornado wins. Go back to AOL. Do you remember AOL? Before AOL, there was something called CompuServe.
Yep.
Again, I'm going back to the 90s.
I remember it.
But AOL destroyed CompuServe simply by massively distributing diskettes everywhere, these CD-ROMs. And I remember them, they were so pervasive. We used to use them as coasters in our office, and you probably did as well. I mean, they were in the PC magazine; they were in every magazine, and that was a time when CDs were expensive and whatnot. But one thing we've learned a lot about technology adoption is if you make it easy and simple for individuals, and you also deliver the fastest, and you if you can come out with a concept where you are a laser beam. I called it a laser beam in the book. Jeffrey Moore called it a bowling alley. But the reality is if you can focus. So one of the companies in our incubator is a company called Pensilla. It has not launched yet after 14 months of developers working on it. I'm very frustrated with the fact it hasn't launched yet, but we're getting there. And they are a laser beam. They only serve e-commerce companies. And they essentially are the AI marketing staff for your business for $99 a month. And when we first set out on this journey, the CEO wanted to be like a Canva 2.0. And I said, no, you need to focus like a laser beam. You need to be better at that one thing than anyone else. Yes, Canva might be better as a general solution, but you've got better hooks and links into the applications that e-commerce companies use today. And so they've set on that path. That's an example of launching an AI company. But I don't want anyone to think that just because they're not launching an AI company, they should not embrace AI. AI can help accelerate your growth in so many ways. I actually talk about it like it's been transformative for me. And this may sound a little bit odd, but to me, I feel like I'm Tony Stark. I literally strap on that AI suit, and I can do so many things so efficiently. I was just talking with the new CEO of paw.com, and I was saying, why are we spending so much money on these content writers? I said, I'll do some articles for you. And in this particular case, I used ChatGPT, and within 10 minutes, it produced a very nice illustration, very nice article. And you can develop content. Of course, what you put into it, you get back. And I also want to emphasize, too, I do a lot of articles for a number of magazines, including Forbes, and I don't use any AI. I use human editors. It's very frustrating because I'm not allowed to use AI when it comes to those type of publications. But every small business doesn't have that rule. If you're not positioning yourself as an expert, or if you've always felt, I just don't have the resources or time, this is the time to do it. I sat down with my wife. We own a school in Fort Lauderdale, and she had not updated her blog since 2021. I said, what are you doing? I wrote 10 articles in 15 minutes. I prompted the articles on ChatGPT, showed them to her, and they were phenomenal. They were very detailed, very specific about the type of Montessori that she offers at her school. And I can't tell you how many applications I've used it for. I've used it, again, get legal advice, but I've used it to write numerous contracts, do board resolutions. Now I'm almost like an amateur lawyer right now, and I don't have a law degree. And again, get legal advice. But I'm telling you, I've used it for that. I've used it for calculations. I know it's being used for coding. We're accelerating. Even 2 days ago, we saw that they were talking about at CES using it to solve diseases. Like, we're talking about an accelerated level. And if you're a startup and you're not embracing AI, or if you think for some reason, this is the way we've always done it, you're going to fall behind. Those who stick with it, those who jump into it and learn it and use it to accelerate their startup will increase their chances of success. I'm convinced of it.
So, number one, you mentioned paw.com. So, Colin has a really incredible office with many offices that are incubating and accelerating different ideas and companies, paw being one of them. And I purchased 2 of these incredible, the most luxurious dog beds that you could ever get for your dogs. I know Colin's a big dog fan as well. And I got to tell you, it's an amazing product. And so the timing of the AI conversation and what we're talking about in your journey, it was interesting. I had somebody come to me yesterday. They are an entrepreneur and they're fairly successful in terms of the direction that they're going. And I'm very optimistic, but they're a non-tech person. And the question asked of me was, can a non-techie be a tech founder, and can they create a company that is primarily focused around AI? So if I don't know anything about it, how do I get to be successful in that environment?
Yeah, John, I'm not a geek. I only aspire to be one. That's what I've told all my team. Like, I don't even know how to transfer a domain name, and I owned a registry. I owned .club, which was an alternative to .com, .net, .org. I really don't understand the core technologies. What I really try to figure out is, what do people want? And if you can understand, or you can identify needs in the market or bottlenecks that exist in your industry, and anyone who's in a job right now, and they see bottlenecks and they see how AI could be used to address those bottlenecks in that job, could literally take that concept and duplicate it in other companies, maybe competitors to that company, whatever. But I'm talking, there are opportunities everywhere. We just have to look for them. And that's actually the title of the very first chapter of the book, is Opportunities Are Everywhere. And if you can solve a need in the market, solve a problem, and it's unique and different, that's the formula for success. Once you've established and set up that formula, then it's next is to identify, one, who we are and our personalities and our skills, and 2, who do we need to hire and complement ourselves as well. So I would say to the person you talk to there, I would say, yes, absolutely, you can start a business in AI. As long as you are solving that need, you're addressing a bottleneck, whatever that is. You have a good thesis for your story. But then it's going to stop there unless you hire the right people around you. For instance, I'm not very good at sales. My profile, if you look at the DISC profiling system, I am a DC. I am not a DI. And the fact of the matter is, I need DIs, or dominant and influential people around me, in order for me to succeed. So I hire those people. I'm not a programmer. I'm not a coder. I'm not a CTO. So I hire those people or partner with them. See, often a startup will say, well, I can't afford to hire all those people. No, you can't. Mm-hmm. But you can afford to partner if you can find the right people. Don't just, one of the worst things I've seen, a lot of college students will graduate and try to start a business. They just come together because they're a pile of buddies. And they say, let's just launch a business. I've seen that happen multiple times. And it doesn't work. Find out, think about yourself. Who are you? What is your personality profile? And actually take one of those free tests online. Figure that out. And then identify others who could complement you to get you to help you start that company. And if you do that, your chances of succeeding increase dramatically. I want to add one more thing. We had the opportunity to interview Bridget Weston a few weeks back. She is the CEO of SCORE, 10,000 volunteers. SCORE makes the claim, and I don't know if you've got data, John, on incubators, but SCORE makes the claim that you can increase your chances of success by 3 times at a startup by having a mentor, right? So that's a critical component. Don't think AI can be your mentor. And by the way, don't use AI to build your 4 sticky note business plan. You cannot outsource the entrepreneur. However, when it comes to that investor plan, use AI all day long.
The idea of mentoring is music to my ears when you share that, because I agree with you. And we also have very similar personality types. I wanted to ask you, in the book, you talk about being a customer-funded startup. and then you talk about venture vulture capital, and I wanted to get sort of your perspective on that. We hear a lot from startups to get to that pivot point where they're thinking about, should I continue to bootstrap, maybe get some money from mom and dad, whatever that might be, or do I go to an angel group and start getting venture capital and so forth? What is your perspective on that? It seems like that it's very much you're in the, get your customers to fund your business and not go that route. So what's your experience and your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I had the opportunity to interview John Mullins, who wrote The Customer Funded Startup for this book. And he really did open my eyes up a lot to how successful you can be if you just think about operating your business a little bit differently. For instance, charging annual fees for your subscriptions, not just monthly fees. We had I've been involved in too many companies, but one company recently, I think this is a fascinating story. Company was struggling. It was an IT SaaS platform, and it had, and they had a lot of debt, and they had to raise more money, and they were getting diluted. And finally, the founder, we talked about this concept, and the founder met a customer who agreed to pay 3 years in advance, $400,000 for that platform. It can be done. You can use customers to help fund your business. The fact is that 90% of the Inc. 5000 companies, more than 90%, did not take venture capital funding. Wow. Venture capital funding does work in some scenarios. We've used venture capital in our businesses when it's strategic, when they can actually help you make a difference. And actually, it was fun in this book. I had the venture capitalist that I did the deal with. I had interviewed separately from me. I did not do the interview. I had somebody else do the interview so he could share his side of it. If you read the book, you'll see I'm relatively negative towards venture capital, private equity.
I gathered that.
And there's some good reason for that. Did you know that 75% of venture-backed companies fail? There are some venture-backed, they have their own priorities. They have their own strategies. They want you to grow your company quickly, and they want a 10x. And there's a concept in investing called liquidation preference, which means that, and I always say this to anyone considering funding, think of it in 3 areas: a big success, a medium success, or a failure. Okay. If you're in a situation where a venture capitalist has liquidation preference, they get paid out first. Okay? So if this company is a big success, doesn't matter, liquidation preference, who cares? No issue. But not every company is a big success. Some companies are a one-hitter, right? They may be even a double hit. And at a certain point, it comes down to it, they might not receive, the founder might not receive anything for that company. I'm working with a company right now that caught Silicon Valley disease. That's the title I used, that's the name I used in the book. And this company actually raised $60 million. The founder was there for 14 years. I was called in to help turn the company around and replaced his board seat, unfortunately. He was removed. The likelihood of him ever making anything from this company is 0 to 1%. It is almost nothing. And the fact of the matter is, it still has some enterprise value. Say it's worth $20 million. He could have still walked away with $4, $5, $6 million after 15 years. The fact of the matter is, venture capital does play a role for the right type of company. And the right type of company or situation is where when you have massive competition and you need to move very quickly. I do a show on Clubhouse. Clubhouse received a lot of venture capital very early on because they had to compete against Twitter Spaces, and Spotify, and and all these other companies, LinkedIn. And the fact of the matter is, if they didn't get venture capital, then they would have been smoked. The other time when you want to consider venture capital is when your business needs to accelerate, and you have the formulas worked out. All you need now is put fuel on the fire.
You need some financial muscle to take it to
Correct.
The next level.
But the book, we do talk about a lot of different alternatives to venture capital to accelerate your business and your funding. And a lot of those things include things like a private placement memorandum and doing a Reg D filing, which is my favorite, which is sophisticated investors. You create a group of investors. I had the opportunity to acquire the name .club, which is an alternative to .com, .net, .org, and I raised $7 million from 43 LinkedIn contacts I had. I had a lawyer here in town help me put together a private placement memorandum. We filed with the SEC. I solicited to those 47 LinkedIn contacts, and I closed 27 investments. $7 million. We raised it in 30 days, no broker, no liquidation preference. Everybody's taking the risk. And those investors did very, very well as we exited that company to GoDaddy 2 years ago.
So .club is interesting. We actually have LevanCenter.club for our memberships, believe it or not, because it's a club. So you bring up something really interesting. When you think about incubator and accelerator programs across the U.S., across the country, there seems to be a standard message in terms of funding. You build your business plan, idea, you go out to your angel investor, you go to your VC, and then hopefully big things happen, merger, acquisition, IPO, global expansion, whatever it might be. Let's say you're a really smart person. You've got a solution to a challenge that needs addressing. You've got an amazing business model concept, but you don't have money. Friends and family is not an option. Other sources aren't. What do you do? And how many entrepreneurs are we losing because they don't have access to those resources that are going to get them to that next level?
Yeah, early funding is interesting. We, again, address this in the book a lot as well, because it's a shame that sometimes I see these angel investors come in and take huge pieces of companies. See it on Shark Tank all the time. I'll take 30% of your company for $50,000. And I'm thinking, you do realize for the next 25 years of your life or 10 years building up this company, you're going to be paying that tax of 30% on all your profits to this individual. So it really is important to try to fund as much as possible as you can, My very, very first company, I funded it with my vegetable money I talked about earlier. I funded it with... I dropped out of college, used the money I got back from my student loans, and I also was probably not right, but hopefully it's written in the book anyway. But
you probably got multiple
yeah,
honorary
exactly.
degrees
And
now.
I took a $12,800 loan from my mother, a loan, not an equity investment. And it was very motivating for me to know that I am going to do whatever I can. If I have to go back to work, I'm fine, but I'm paying back that loan. So friends and family can be a source to tap, absolutely. Just understand that. That they are your friends and family, right? And I talk a lot about the mom test in the book. And don't get me wrong, my mom did invest at multiple times when we were scaling multiple companies, and she's made millions of dollars. So I'm totally okay with it, and she's very happy with it. So in any case, I do have the mom test though. So if I'm not letting my mom into it, then I shouldn't be asking other people to go into it as well. But I do like incubators and, places like the Alan Levan Center. And when you get into them, they do have a lot of connections with government funding. And I know we come from Canada, John and I, and pretty much government funding is the way you do things in Canada for almost everything. And the Americans don't often think about that. But there is funding out there. There are ways to raise money through the government, and also even pitch competitions. Sure. I love the pitch competition. I know Lil, she's been on your show. She's a chapter in the book, The Art of the Pitch, and she teaches at the cohort as well for the art of the pitch. And she won multiple contests, 25,000, 50,000, multiple contests, and that's free money. But forget the money. It's the exposure that you're getting. It's the practice that you're getting by getting yourself out there and promoting the business and your business plan. So there are many different ways to get funding. I would definitely consider looking at government funding if you can. I know the most traditional in the United States is SBA. It's a shame that the interest rates are having such a negative impact on startups out there right now, but I don't think that'll last for long. That's, I would definitely look at those sources.
I wanted to ask you, you mentioned your mom endearingly and your background in farming, and I was curious, when I'm always interested in, when I talk to successful entrepreneurs, kind of understanding the DNA. And how much of an influence were your mom, your dad, this farming, obviously farming, you have to have an amazing work ethic. You get up early in the morning. How much of that plays into who you are today as your character? How much of your success has been, as an example, that work ethic versus maybe anything else that you might have?
Yeah, I mean, I can point to it in the book. My mother was very, very tight on money. I'll tell you, when any startup, you've gone out there, you got to be tight on money, and very, very careful of how you spend money and whatnot. I mean, we'll say cheap. In our family, that's actually a compliment. I know some people may not take it that way, but we're famously a very cheap family, and that was one thing that I learned from her. But I also learned it could be a little bit detrimental because we sometimes went a little too far by not investing in a little bit of money to make money as well. My father, unfortunately, he died when I was 14 years old, but fortunately, he had such a huge impact on my life. He was an ordained minister. He was also a founder of an advertising company. And I talk a lot in the book about integrity over money. And it's going to sound a little bit counterintuitive. But the fact of the matter is, when you do govern yourself with a lot of integrity and you watch your reputation, you begin to make more and more money over time. People flock to you. They want to invest in your companies. Yes, you can make money in the short term by doing this or doing that just to make that a little extra money, even though it's not something you should do. Yeah, you might make it in the short term, but in the long term, you'll make more money by believing in integrity over money, and that's what I got from my father.
So I'm known for throwing what we call the Rubik's Cube question, and depending on the nature of the conversation, I don't know what's coming out of my mouth until it does. So this is a debatable question. It's also a bit of a trick question. And I had this conversation with my own team the other day, and it was very interesting, the feedback. Is there a difference between being rich and wealthy?
Okay, so that's not in the book.
No. See, it's working.
How do we define wealth? I mean, for me, wealth is about having enough money. So you have to have that level of freedom, enough money to that level of freedom. And that's where rich and wealth sort of equate. But then going beyond that level of freedom, how do we do something meaningful in the world? Who do we hang out with? Who comes to my boat parade party every year, John? We want to surround ourselves with great people.
Which is not a cheap party, by the way.
No, it's not. But a wealth of friendship makes a big difference.
Yes.
And the connections and whatnot. I think wealth is more at a certain point. I think up to a certain point, it's rich and wealth, but you go beyond freedom, that level of where you've got enough wealth to be free no matter what the rest of your life and do whatever you want, travel wherever you want. Then it becomes, wealth is more than that. It is really all about giving back, connecting with the community, and having a great family. Yep. And unfortunately, in this book, we do talk a lot about the negative side of entrepreneurship and the toll of entrepreneurs. We saw in the Wall Street Journal an article this week, front page about Elon Musk and some of these things that he's been getting into and the drugs he's been taking. In that article and in the book, I talk about Tony Hsieh, who did a great company. He did the Zappos, visited his company, saw that he was using a lot of the systems that we talk about in this book by a gentleman named Vern Harnish, who, again, we interviewed for this book. But sadly, he did die in a fire, and he had drug issues. And believe it or not, 49% of entrepreneurs, this was a study done by Michael Freeman from the University of Berkeley, 49% of entrepreneurs have some form of mental condition, mental issue. They are neurodiverse. Elon Musk, in that article, admitted that he was actually suffering depression, that he was bipolar, and he's also admitted that he's got Asperger's as well. Now, some of those things, that neurodiversity, are the strength. That's a superhero. Mm-hmm. But there's also a negative side to entrepreneurship. And if we don't connect with others, because we're not alone, You can connect in an incubator. I belong to an organization called EO, and we meet every single month with a group of people. We don't just talk about how to make more money. We talk about the emotional and the stresses of running a startup. Yep. It is a roller coaster. It is not easy. Every single person listening to us right now, they'll recognize that they're up at 3 o'clock in the morning. There isn't one entrepreneur, one startup who hasn't been up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking about challenges or problems or payroll or whatever it is. It's a freaking roller coaster. And we have to acknowledge that and begin to learn how to deal with that. Because if we don't deal with those mental challenges, then you could end up like Tony Hsieh. And I'm not saying Elon Musk has mental challenges. He's the richest guy in the world. He's got a lot of his neurodiversity is his strength. But I am concerned. He talks about sleepless nights and drug use, and let's hope the story ends better than the direction it's going.
Yeah, and there's obviously tremendous upsides in entrepreneurship, and we always talk about those things, but there are obviously challenges, emotional, family, the stress of financials when you're certainly starting and bootstrapping your business that can play into the family dynamics, your mental dynamics, and I'm glad you shared that today. So the book is amazing. I haven't read the entire book, but I'm anxious to get through more of it. Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, Amazon bestseller. Congratulations on the success of the book. You're involved in a number of different ventures today. 2 of them right now. Just mention a couple. You mentioned Startup Club.
Yeah, we have almost 1 million members on Startup Club on Clubhouse. We do a weekly show there called Start, Scale, Exit, Repeats. Serial Entrepreneur Secrets Revealed, which is syndicated in podcast as well. And we interview some just fascinating people. And we do a lot of shows on AI as well. It's something that I think every startup needs to really embrace. We talked about that. Paw.com, which is a e-commerce pet products company. Design meets comfort for your dog. And 3 years in a row on Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies in America. Very happy about that company. Pensilla, I mentioned, which is an AI platform. E-commerce, it really is your AI marketing staff for $99 a month. It's focused on e-commerce companies. A little fun. I mean, I own many companies, real estate business, 19 vacation rental, but a fun thing happened after I sold my last company. My mom calls me up and says, Colin, I need you to buy the family farm because both my uncles had passed away. And this farm is located in the middle of a city. It's Whitby. It's right on Lake Ontario, like within feet of Lake Ontario.
Wow.
And it's 15 acres, and we've owned this in the family since 1940. So I'm now actually an owner of a Christmas tree farm as well.
Wow.
And a school. I talked about the school my wife and I own.
Yeah.
There really is too many companies. Like I've been thinking about my New Year's resolution. It's like, okay, I really do have to stop investing and putting money into companies. At least give myself a break. It's challenging running a family office. I no longer am CEO. 5 years ago, I stepped out of that role. I am no longer a CEO. But when you have so many kids, it causes a lot of chaos and some stress as well.
Well, it's a terrific story, wonderful background. What a great way to launch the new year for 2024. Colin, Campbell, thanks again for being on the podcast today. Thanks for all the work you do here at the Levan Center, a lot of the speaking engagements and sharing your story and some of those nuggets, wisdom of success that you've had, and some of the potholes, the pitfalls of entrepreneurship, which is also of great value. So thank you again for being on the podcast today with John and I.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ryan and John.
Thank you.
Remember to subscribe, like, and share the Sunshine Startups Live podcast and follow us on social media. If you're interested in sponsoring or appearing on the show, please email us at booking@sunshinestartups.live.